Hello, and welcome to ForeFlight's Enhanced and Integrated Weight and Balance webinar. Today's webinar is going to be looking at the new Weight and Balance tab brought to ForeFlight and its integration into the Flights tab, making flight planning a whole lot safer and a whole lot faster. You can just go through on one screen and have all of your planning right there. My name is Thomas Daugherty. I'm the product manager here at ForeFlight, and I'm also a CFII. And joining me is Rachel.
Hi, I'm Rachel Scarbrough. I'm a Senior Customer Success Coordinator and also a CFII.
Today's topics, we're going to be talking about enabling and disabling the new enhanced weight and balance features. We're going to talk about building out a new weight and balance profile using that view. We'll talk about migrating any existing weight and balance profiles you may have built in the previous version of ForeFlight's weight and balance view. We'll talk about some of the benefits of the new enhanced weight and balance and its integration into the Flights tab. And then we'll talk about sharing weight and balance profiles. If you've got somebody that you share an aircraft with, you guys can go through and only have to build a profile on one device, share it across both pilots. Before we begin, a couple of housekeeping notes here. You can ask a question at any time. We've got support staff standing by to answer any questions that you've got around weight and balance or ForeFlight in general. You can use the Go to Webinar panel and then ask staff a question at the bottom, and we'll respond to you with all of that. If you've got any audio problems, we do recommend joining from a computer, not a mobile device, as we've found that works much better. And this session is also being recorded, and it'll be accessible via our foreflights.com/webinars, along with all of the webinars that we host here at ForeFlight. A great library of content for you to go through and learn how to use ForeFlight better. Well, let's get started. We've been calling this enhanced weight and balance, but really, what is enhanced about this weight and balance form? Many of you are probably familiar with our previous weight and balance, where I could go through and add in weight and balance information, put loads at different stations around my aircraft. But this was disconnected from the rest of ForeFlight. It didn't bring in information about my aircraft. I had to build this separately, and I had to build it for each aircraft pretty much from scratch in there. What we're transitioning to now is a much cleaner, a faster way of going through and building my profiles or adding loads to any of my stations. You can see my summary view is much cleaner here with my basic empty weight, my zero fuel weight. Takeoff weights are easier to understand as I go through. Adding loads to each seat is now much easier with standard weights or saved loads for individuals in there. I can also easily add cargo and things like that based off of just tapping on and adding that saved information. My weight and balance summary is a new load manifest. This is much easier for me to see, a printed out report of everything that I need on weight and balance. And I can also save this on through the integration with the Flights tab to like my files for that flight so that I have it ready to go if I ever need to sign off on it or use that for my operation. And that integration into the Flights tab for those Performance Plus customers makes adding in my weights and bringing that into my performance en route performance calculations so much simpler. I can go through and see that the loads right there as part of my flight planning, add everything in. So a lot of great new stuff that comes along with this enhanced weight and balance. Rachel, what do I need to do to bring that into ForeFlight for me?
So to access this and enable enhanced weight and balance, you can go to More, Account, and then under the account settings, go to ForeFlight Labs and enable it there.
Awesome. Yeah, tons of great stuff inside of the ForeFlight Labs there. It's also where we have our enhanced taxi planning in there. So I go into ForeFlight Labs and I enable the new enhanced weight and balance. This new version of weight and balance is going to be available to all customers. The integration with the Flights tab and those performance profiles is available to our Performance Plus customers. Any existing weight and balance profiles that I may have built using the older version of weight and balance will need to be migrated, and we have an assistant that will help you move all of that over inside of the app. For any reason, if you decide that you maybe need to go on a flight right away and you don't have time to learn the new weight and balance, you're familiar with the old version, you can revert using the same selector under the ForeFlight Labs in your accounts view there. Any changes or any migration data that you've put in will be saved, so you won't lose any work that you've done to migrate any aircraft. And the change to enhance the weight and balance will be required at a future date, but in the meantime, you can move back and forth and use the old version and the new version. So let's look at building a new profile. I'm building that out for an aircraft so that I have an enhanced weight and balance view that I can use for all of my flights. And Rachel, what are the steps that I need to do to go through and do that?
Well, to build a new profile, you're going to tap on the weight and balance tab, select aircraft, select a weight and balance profile, enter the basic empty weight, or select an existing weight, and then just verify your stations.
Awesome. That sounds pretty easy to me. I went and grabbed a copy of some weight and balance out of my aircraft. I do want to make sure that I have my tail number specific weight and balance sheet. This is the one that's been weighed for my aircraft, and it's got my aircraft specific information. And I should see my basic empty weight and my basic empty CG as some sort of total line. A lot of these sheets look different here. We're looking at one for the Mooney, but I've seen these forms in all different configurations. You just want to make sure you have the specific one for your aircraft. And as you see here, your basic empty CG might be called ARM. Those are interchangeable for the total here. Let's take a look at that and see what it's like to build out a profile. So I've got my iPad loaded up here. And Rachel, you want to walk me through building a new profile?
Sure. So we are starting from the weight and balance page. We're going to tap on that drop-down menu up at the top of the screen. Tap on that plus button. And then let's select our aircraft here that we want to add the weight and balance profile to.
I'd like to build that out for that Mooney, it looks like.
Perfect. Once you've done that, you can select from a template or use a blank template. For this Mooney, it looks like we've got a 4-seat arrangement, so we can go ahead and select that choice.
Yeah, Rachel, what is the difference between like the 4-seat arrangement and the blank template that I see here?
Well, we've actually made it easier with a lot of different weight and balance pre-made templates for you. So in our library, our performance team has custom templates that they have made based off of your POH or AFM.
Awesome. So it's a common aircraft like most of our Cessna 172s are light training aircraft, things like that. I may have a pre-built template with all of that configuration already built in there for me.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's go ahead and select that 4-seat template then.
Okay, and then from here, you can rename it a different profile name if you'd like, but the couple of major things that you want to make sure that you do is add a basic empty CG and add your basic empty weight.
All right. Well, I'm going to reference back to my weight and balance out of my POH here. And so my basic empty weight there was, or basic empty CG was 44.08. And my basic empty weight was 165663. That looks pretty easy to me.
That looks good. So from here, you've got your stations, and you can see that we have already added some stations for you. But you can edit these stations individually by clicking on each one. And you can add a different name, an arm, include it in the basic operating weight, or add a weight limit for that station.
Rachel, what is basic operating weight?
The basic operating weight defines the weight of the aircraft in a state where it's ready to operate. So items that don't vary in weight between flights and aren't included in the aircraft's basic empty weight would be a good option to include here in the bow. It's more utilized in commercial operations, but you can also save some time by adding your own weight as a pilot or any static flight items that are always in the plane, including a first aid kit, chocks, tie downs, or maybe any other equipment that is loaded in the plane and stays in the plane.
That makes sense. So like here in kind of the hat rack in the Mooney, if I have my chocks back there and I always store them back there, I can just add that as part of my basic operating weight.
Correct. And then just something to note, when you include in bow, or when the include in bow is selected and a weight is added, the item will become inactive on the weight and balance page while you're flight planning, and then the weight is added to the aircraft's basic operating weight.
Well, all of my stations look pretty good here. I don't really have a need to add any additional station because ForeFlight's gone through and built out this profile for me. The next thing I see is the list of CGs here.
So you can confirm your forward and aft CG limits. You can make any necessary changes here. And then you can also, if you scroll down a little bit further, use the %mac. Now, this is mainly for larger aircraft, but the center of gravity limitations and the actual center of gravity are often expressed in terms of %mac for those larger aircraft, and that's where you'll enable it here.
Cool. I don't think that's going to apply to our Mooney today, but that was very easy for us to set up. I just put in my basic empty weight and my basic empty CG, and ForeFlight had everything else, listed in there for me, ready to go. Reference my POH for my CG limits. That looks like a profile ready to go for me. So I've gone through and selected that 4-seat arrangement profile that we just built inside of my weight and balance tab. Rachel, now that I've got this built, how do I actually use this?
Well, this is where in the weight and balance page that you can select any of your payload. So if you tap on any of the stations here, you can add your load weight. And then if you include a description of that weight, that will also save your load so you can choose it from that menu for future reference.
Okay, so if I go ahead and put in my weight and my name, I can now have that saved as one of my saved loads down here and use that for any of my future flights.
Yes.
What is this standard weights that I have here?
We've gone ahead and just entered a few different standard weights for males, females, and children. So these are not editable, but it's just an easy access to include different payload for your flight.
Okay, so I don't have to go through and ask everybody what their weight is if I am well within my CG here. I can just use the standard load. Okay, that makes sense. So I've put in a weight there, and suddenly my CG chart is updated. I don't have any fuel loaded into this flight, but I can see how I can go from station to station and pretty easily put in all of my weights and calculate where my CG is going to sit for our flight. Well, that was pretty easy for us to go through and build a profile from scratch. Luckily, ForeFlight had that 4-seat arrangement already done for me. What if there isn't a profile built for me?
If there isn't a profile for you to use, then you'll just use a blank template and create one yourself.
Okay, so I don't see one here for my warrior. Let's take a look at creating a blank template for that aircraft.
Basically, you're going to start with the exact same thing that we did with the template. So you can start with your profile name, the basic empty CG, and the basic empty weight. From there, you're going to move down to the stations. So we've got a few that are already in there right now. You can see that these stations are yellow because you don't have the data input in there yet. So you can click on or tap on a station, add a row name, the row arm, and any weight limits. And then also you can see under seats in this row, there's pilot and co-pilot. So you could even click on those. And this is where you would include in bow and add a weight limit for this particular station too.
Oh, okay. So if I have an aircraft that has, a weight limit on a particular seat in there, I can go ahead and include that, and ForeFlight will warn me if I try and exceed that weight in that seat.
That's right.
Awesome. Now that row is looking good, I can drop back to the rest of my profile here.
Yeah, and then we just continue on with adding any additional stations for your plane by tapping on Add Station.
So, Rachel, I went through and put in all of the stations that are in here, but my aircraft has an additional row for seats. What can I do to add an additional station type?
To add a station, just tap on Add Station, and then you're going to choose the station type between either a single seat, a row of seats, cargo, fuel, or maybe another aircraft item.
What kind of stuff might I put in that aircraft item?
Something that you might add in the aircraft item could be like onboard oxygen tanks, TKS tanks, if you've got variable weights.
Anything that's like going to stay in the aircraft, but I might have filled or unfilled and may have a different weight in there. That makes sense. Let's go ahead and just add our additional row of seats here. And then I can just put in the information like I have for the rest of our stations. So I got all the stations set up here now. So it looks like I just need to go ahead and put in my forward CG limits.
That's right. So tap on one of the limits. You can enter the CG in inches and the corresponding weight. And most aircraft are going to have more than just one forward CG limit. So tap on Add Forward Limit and continue to add the correct CG limits for your plane. Once you're done with the forward CG limits, you'll do the exact same thing with the aft CG limits.
All right, Rachel, well, that looks like all of the information that I need for the profile for this aircraft. Is there anything else that I need to enter in?
I think we're ready to go for this profile.
I can go back to my list of profiles, and now I see my tail number and my named profile in there. All ready to go. Cool. Well, that looks like a pretty good walkthrough of how to build a profile from scratch here. A couple of notes that you'll want to know when you go through and build your own profiles. If you do have an aircraft, say a jet, that uses advanced features like fuel scheduling, you're going to want to go ahead and use those ForeFlight built weight and balance profiles for those, like the 4-seat configuration we looked at, to support those. And if you have an aircraft that's been STC'd for a maximum takeoff weight increase, you want to make sure that you select the correct profile from your list of aircraft to have that maximum takeoff weight increase in there. Rachel, well, that looks like a great way to go through and build my own profile, but what if I've already done this previously in the old weight and balance form? Is there a way that I might be able to migrate one of those existing profiles?
Absolutely. We make it easy with our migrating tool. So you can migrate an existing profile just by opening up the profile selector on the weight and balance tab, selecting a weight and balance profile from the legacy profile section to migrate it to an enhanced weight and balance profile. Select the aircraft profile you want to link to that profile. Select any aircraft weights, verify the station arms, and then verify the number of seats per station.
Well, that seems pretty simple. Let's take a look at that in practice. So here I am in my weight and balance form, or the weight and balance tab that we've been looking at. And I've simply opened my list of profiles there. If I scroll down a little, I can see a list of legacy profiles, and these are ones that I may have built previously using the old version of weight and balance. So as Rachel said, let's just go ahead and select the aircraft that we want to go ahead and move over. I'll select our Mooney again. I can confirm the aircraft that I want to use for this from the list of aircraft I have on my aircraft tab. We'll select our Mooney again. And now I see two different lists of aircraft weight defaults. Rachel, what is the difference between these two lists?
So the aircraft weights that you see here are from your existing aircraft profile, and the profile weights are from what came from the legacy profile weight and balance. You can see that with the legacy profile, you did not have maximum zero fuel weight or maximum ramp weight, and the aircraft profile does.
I must have forgotten to fill those out when I was building that old legacy profile. Well, because my aircraft profile has that, let's go ahead and select that as our weights that we're going to carry over to our new profile. I can also see that my aircraft units are in pounds and inches. That works for our aircraft, but if you need to move that to something else, you can make that selection there. I can go through and verify the station arms. Just like when we looked at that pre-built 4-seat configuration profile that ForeFlight had, it's going to show me very similar stations as I have across. This is going to come, I may have modified these in my legacy weight and balance profile for their exact arms. And I can just verify that the same way when we were building out a new profile. But it's all carried over here for me. And then I'm going to be asked to verify the number of seats. Rachel, why is ForeFlight asking me how many seats there are in each row?
Well, ForeFlight's going to default to 2 seats per station. So you want to make sure that this is correct for your aircraft. And if it's not, you can go ahead and edit that here before you finish migrating the profile.
Well, 2 seats works out fine for our Mooney. I don't think anybody wants to try and fly in the Mooney with 3 across in there. Not the most leg room out there. The 2 seats works great for us then. Great. So my legacy profile just comes right across with all of my stations and all of the arms on there. Now, I used to have saved loads that I had for certain people that I flew with as part of that legacy profile. Rachel, where do those come up now?
Well, that's going to come up once you tap on each station under saved loads, that saved loads menu there. So if you had any named loads from the legacy profiles, you will see them here.
So there's the folks that I used to fly with, my summer flight bag, my winter flight bag, all of that just gets brought across as a saved load. So I didn't even lose any of those named stations that I might have set up as I migrate something across.
Those migrate too.
Just as easy as it can be. So Rachel, now that we've gone through and built a profile or migrated an existing profile over, how do I really take advantage of the enhanced weight and balance?
Well, what's great with this, if you've got a Performance Plus subscription, since weight and balance is now connected to your aircraft profile, it can integrate into your flights via the flights page.
Oh, so I can have that brought right into my planning onto flights. And will it take things like my fuel into account?
It will. It'll automatically add the fuel into the calculations as well as the payload.
That sounds very helpful for me. So I've got a flight loaded up here onto the Flights tab from our home base here in Austin, out to West Texas to Marfa, a nice little day trip out there to go see the high desert. So if I scroll down through my flight plan here, I'll get to the payload section, and I've got a new button down here called Weight and Balance. If I tap on that, I can see any of our weight and balance profiles that we've set up for our aircraft so far. I'll go ahead and select my Mooney. And now I see what looks like the weight and balance tab brought right across into the flight. So I can see my 2 seats here where I can adjust the weight. Maybe I don't know who's flying with me today. I'll just use one of our standard loads in there. I can see my cargo brought in, and then I can see my fuel brought into the wing tanks. Rachel, where does that fuel information, does that come from my fuel profile as part of my flight?
It's coming from what you have entered on the flights page and integrating it directly into this weight and balance profile.
Ah, that's very nice. That's a much simpler way for me having to go from tab to tab and remember what the amount of fuel is I need for each flight.
Definitely.
Another question I have is, as I add more weight to my aircraft, let's say we have somebody who's going to ride in the back seats with us here. I've now increased my weight, and as I increase my weight, it's going to take us more fuel, more performance to bring that across. Does the ForeFlight Enhanced Weight and Balance integrated into the Flights tab take into account any changes in weight like that?
It does. It makes things simple for you. So whatever you have changed here on this weight and balance page, it will automatically calculate and add it into your flight plan as well.
Wow, that seems much simpler than having to, add a bag and recalculate all of our performance information.
Yeah, it just does it all for you.
I can also go through and expand the people or cargo section here and see the individual loads for each of those seats. So if I don't need to go into into a specific seat here, if I just want to update something without going into the weight and balance view, I can change that weight here. I can see how ForeFlight recalculated. And then I can see the weight and balance tab there now is telling me in balance. So even if I edit a load from either my people or my cargo, ForeFlight will go ahead and see if that matches the CG and let me know if I'm in or out of balance. Really nice little function there, so I don't have to always dive into the full weight and balance profile. One thing that is nice in that weight and balance profile is the summary information for our flight, where I have this full load manifest. Rachel, I don't normally use a load manifest. Is this something that a certain type of operator might need?
Part 135 operators might need this. They might need a captain's signature on their load summary, and we have now provided that section, if you scroll down a little bit further, for the captain to sign and enter their name and date. And you can use the markup tools with the iOS device just by tapping on the Send To button up in the upper right-hand corner. And there's markup right there. That's going to just use your iOS markup feature. But then another thing you could do with Performance Plus is attach that load summary to your files on the flights page. And then from there, we have our own annotations feature that you can use directly in ForeFlight.
Oh, so I can just go ahead and tap that Save to Files, back out of our weight and balance view here, scroll back up to the top, and see that my load manifest is right there as part of my saved files.
Yes, and again, there's that pencil button for your annotations if you need to add any signatures.
Well, I don't think anyone's going to be too concerned on our flight in the Mooney, but it is nice to have a saved copy of this to show that I did, in fact, calculate weight and balance for our flight before we went out today. Part of that all available information I need to go look at. Well, the integration into Flight's there looks very powerful for a lot of our operators that are flying a lot and are used to using that Flight's tab in there. So just to reiterate, it's going to use your flight plan fuel to determine what needs to be into the tanks there. It's going to update that performance planning based on the weight and balance profile and the loads that I have on the aircraft. I can enter that passenger information either by opening the full weight and balance profile or just expanding the people or cargo sections inside of the flights. So much easier to do those quick, somebody brought an extra bag kind of additions into my weight and balance. And that summary button generates a load manifest that can be saved off to files. So I can have that attached to each flight. So, Rachel, we've been looking at all of this on the iPad, but is there anywhere else that I can build a weight and balance profile out?
Sure. You can go to ForeFlight Web via plan.foreflight.com and go to the Aircrafts tab and directly build any weight and balance profiles there now that your weight and balance profiles are connected to your aircraft. We don't have a separate weight and balance tab on ForeFlight Web, so that is only through mobile, as well as any integration with the flights is ForeFlight Mobile as well, and not currently available on the web.
Okay, so if I've got a saved copy of my weight and balance for my specific tail number on my computer, I can sit down and have both of those open in different windows and just make it a little easier for me to build out maybe a complicated CG limit for my aircraft without having to do it on my iPad. That's a nice convenience feature.
Exactly.
Well, we've been building out a couple of different profiles here, and Rachel, we're looking to go fly. So how can I go through and share one of these weight and balance profiles to you so that you have that for our flight as well?
You have the ability to share weight and balance profiles between yourself and other friends who want to use ForeFlight. You can do that by opening up the aircraft page, and then you're going to tap on the Send To button in the upper right-hand corner, and either AirDrop or mail, if you have that set up on your device, the aircraft profile. This is going to share the weight and balance profile that you have connected to that aircraft.
Okay. So if we're sitting next to each other in the FBO, I can just AirDrop it to you. Or if we're planning the night before, I can just email that profile off to you.
That's right.
Cool. Well, I see that I have a profile here that you sent me for one of the 172s. What do I do once I've received a profile from someone?
So if someone's shared a profile with you, it is going to be locked from editing. So you can see that it's got my name with a little tag there on the aircraft profile, and everything is grayed out. What you can do if you need to make any changes, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page and copy the aircraft. So tap Copy Aircraft. It's going to make a copy of that profile, and then everything will be editable there.
Okay. What if I have a aircraft that I want to associate this new weight and balance profile that you sent me with?
Sure. Another convenient feature is the ability to copy weight and balance profiles from one aircraft to another. So if you fly more than one of the same type of aircraft, and you don't have to create a new weight balance profile for every aircraft. You can just tap on the weight and balance profile that you want to copy, scroll down to the bottom of the page, tap Copy Profile, and then select the aircraft you want to copy it to. And then once you're done with that, you can make any necessary adjustments to the copied profile.
Awesome. So if I have a bunch of 172s that I fly, I can copy the profile over and simply adjust the basic empty weight that I need to. And this this share of sending the aircraft profile on, we are working to bring a direct share of the weight and balance profile from user to user in there. And that will be coming in a future update here. So you won't always need to do this full share of an aircraft to have that. So we've now been able to share an aircraft profile between both of us, and I think we're ready to go. Just to recap on sharing those weight and balance profiles, it currently requires sharing an aircraft profile from the aircraft tab, copying the published aircraft to enable editing, and then copying that weight and balance profile to the correct aircraft on your account in there. Another note to make here is deleting an aircraft profile from that aircraft tab will also delete that associated aircraft or that associated weight and balance profile because those things are now linked. So you want to make sure that you're being careful as you clear out aircraft. Okay, and that's all we've got for the new enhanced weight and balance brought to you inside of ForeFlight. We have staff standing by to answer any additional questions you have, and we've got a few minutes here for Q&A. If you don't get an opportunity to get your question answered today, you can learn more about the new enhanced weight and balance by going to foreflight.com/weight and balance, W&B. And you can always contact our support team at team@foreflight.com. That is our fanatical pilot support team. They're all pilots, they're all ForeFlight experts, and they would be more than happy to walk you through any weight and balance questions that you have.
Rachel, so the staff has been typing away here, answering tons of great questions. So one quick note in there, we mentioned that weight and balance is on web there. It is shortly coming to web on there. So you won't see it today, but you'll see it rather soon. We've gotten several questions around maximum takeoff weight and aircraft that have modified max takeoff weights. Rachel, what can I do to have one of those aircraft in my profile?
Okay, let's say that we have a Cessna 172 selected as our aircraft type. And when I'm trying to migrate a legacy profile to the enhanced weight and balance, I'm going to get the following errors. So I'll just show you here on my iPad. I'll scroll down, tap Add Weight and Balance Profile. We are going to migrate this one I've got here. Tap on Profile Defaults. Verify the station arms, and see what happens here is you get that value entered exceeds weight limits. The IMTO can't be increased beyond the POH published IMTO. So what you do here is this is basically due to the legacy profile having a higher maximum takeoff weight than what the aircraft profile has that you've selected. Since the weight and balance profiles are now connected to the aircraft profile, you need to make sure that you have the correct aircraft type selected for any STC that you may have. So to remedy this, we're going to go back here. I'm going to scroll up, and I had an engine upgrade. So one of the most popular profiles that we have for that is this Skyhawk Airplanes STC right here. I'm going to select that for my aircraft type. Then we'll go down to add weight and balance profile again and try the migration process once more. And you can already see it's gone past that error point, and we're on to step 3 from here now. There you go.
Cool. So if I've got a common STC there, very easy for me to work around. And I mentioned that it was coming to web shortly, and I was correct. It is actually just been released onto web, so very shortly
All right.
on the web there for us. We've also had some customers asking about sort of how to activate the enhanced weight and balance, not finding that in there. If we look at my iPad here, if I go to More, and then I click on my Accounts option here, this is where I can find the ForeFlight Labs. Now, I have a business account on my iPad, so I don't see it. I just see the taxi routes option, but this is where I'll see the enhanced weight and balance. So if you're having trouble finding that, that's where that lives. Rachel, we've also gotten several questions. Why does my weight and balance tab say mass and balance? And how can I move things over to a different unit? Let's say maybe I want to use centimeters and kilos. Do you have any answer for what we can do for that?
So the difference between the mass imbalance and the weight imbalance is determined by your iPad's region setting. So if you have a region setting in the Apple settings there, outside of the US, it's going to use mass imbalance. Otherwise, inside the US will be weight imbalance. And then your question about changing, and this is going to happen from the aircraft profile, and you'll change the units here. So you can change length units, and as well as scrolling down to the weight units. And once you do that to the aircraft profile, it's going to make the changes to your weight and balance profile as well.
Cool. So if I have an aircraft already set up like that, I found one as well as I went to go migrate one of my existing forms here, that after I had just selected an aircraft, I also had the ability to select units there. So if I'm migrating to a profile, I can also move the units. That can also be very helpful. Next question we have on here, Rachel. When I migrate my Piper Archer over to the new weight and balance format, it shows my empty weight as a negative number. I've verified station and arms. Can I go back to the old method?
Well, to answer your question, yes. I would recommend reaching out to us first, team@ForeFlight.com, just so we can take a look at your profile and make sure that everything is correct. But if you wanted to go back to the legacy weight and balance, you sure can. You're going to do this the same way that you enhanced weight and balance in the first place. So you go to More, Account, ForeFlight Labs, and then you can deselect weight and balance.
Okay, that makes sense to be able to go back and forth, and a great point to be able to reach out to that pilot support team. Use that resource that you have as ForeFlight customers to solve a problem for you. We can get that profile all sorted out. But if you're trying to go fly this afternoon, you don't have time to sort of get that sorted, you can always use Labs to go back and forth. A couple of questions on what if enhanced weight and balance doesn't show up under ForeFlight Labs. It looks like that's mostly from not having updated. This is in the most recent version of ForeFlight. So you'll want to go through into the Apple App Store on your device and make sure that you've updated ForeFlight to the latest version. The version that you'll need to see for that is 14.2. If you're inside of ForeFlight right now and you're not seeing it and you want to see what version of ForeFlight you have, you can go into the More tab down in the corner here and then tap on About. And let me show that. I'll do that walkthrough when I'm actually showing my iPad here. About, and then you can see that I am actually on a previous version of it here. So you'll see your version number up at the top there. So if you don't see it in Labs, that's the most likely scenario. Rachel, did you see any other questions in here?
Let me go through here.
Again, to everyone, feel free to use the GoToWebinar portal to ask any questions that you might have in. And if you don't get a chance to get your question answered, team@ForeFlight.com. Again, excellent resource for you.
We had a couple of questions again on how to make a load a saved load. So just to go back over that again, I'm going to go ahead and share my iPad one more time. And let's see, let's go to weight and balance here. Just for an example, I'll tap on tail compartment. And you'll enter the load right here. Let's say I want to put in 200 pounds. As soon as you enter the weight, you also want to add a description. So we're going to go test cargo, and then I tap on done. I'm going to close that out, and that's going to save the load as soon as I added that description. So you can scroll down, and under saved loads, now you see that test cargo, and you can always tap on that again.
So it's the description that makes it go ahead and save that for me.
Yeah.
What do I do if I've filled up all of the saved loads there? Is there a way for me to get rid of one of those?
You can just use the swipe left to delete function there. So you just swipe left to delete any save load you want, and it will remove it from the list.
Perfect, just like I do anywhere else inside of ForeFlight.
Absolutely.
Well, we're running towards the end of our time here. Again, if you've not gotten a chance to get your question answered, team@foreflight.com, please reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to get your profile all set up and walk you through any other features, walk you through any of the weight and balance features that you want to take a look at. We hope that you all get an opportunity to play around with this new integration. The Performance Plus customers giving the integration between the Flights tab and the weight and balance, and then just the enhanced weight and balance tab itself. This is our first release of this new enhanced weight and balance, so be looking for tons of new things to come to it to make this an even more powerful tool in your flying. Thanks everyone for attending, and that wraps up our weight and balance webinar.
Thanks for joining.